All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in for the first time, we just finished talking about a bunch of college expansions, both in college football, the proposed 14-team expansion, before even playing a 12-team playoff, what that might mean, why they might be proposing it. That was our first segment. We just finished talking about the proposed expansion to March Madness. Talked about my thoughts on that, why I think it isn't the greatest idea. But in this segment, we are going to continue our coverage of the MLB offseason. We're going to be talking about the Kansas City Royals, talking about what they did in their offseason to improve from a miserable 2023 campaign. But before we get into that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you are right now, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net, leave a tip or donation. You can leave a comment with that tip or donation. It'll scroll across the bottom of the screen for you and everybody else to see, me as well. We'll have a little discussion. We appreciate everything you can give and do give. Again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I said, in this segment, we are going to be talking about the Kansas City Royals. The Kansas City Royals are a team that, quite frankly, sucked last season. They lost over 100 games. Their record was 56 and 106 last year. Not the place that you want to be, but for the Royals, a team in a small market, and that's something that in baseball matters a lot more than a lot of sports because there is no salary cap or salary floor. So these small market teams, you talk about the Oakland A's a little bit, they're not required to spend money, and it shows sometimes in that payroll and how good they are and how bad they can be for as long as they can be bad for. But the Royals had a really productive offseason. And for a team that lost over 100 games last season, they might have a really, really solid turnaround. You talk about some of their moves. They first and foremost locked up their young superstar Bobby Whitt Jr. to a 10-year, $280 million deal. A huge deal that, if he continues to develop the way that he is developing right now, it might be a steal. And it's crazy for me to sit here and say $280 million is a steal of a deal for someone. But the Royals, again, if Bobby Witt continues to develop the way that he has been developing in the past couple seasons, it's going to be huge. He's going to be that franchise cornerstone for them to build around. And I'm glad to see the Royals back competing. For those who don't remember the last time they were good, 2014, 2015, they made it to back-to-back World Series, winning one of them. And then since they're a small market team, they couldn't re-sign everyone. So they kind of fell off a cliff. And now they're kind of building back. This team, for as bad as it was last season, they still had some pieces. You talk about aging star, Salvador Perez, one of the premier DH/catchers in his day. He was competing with Shohei Ohtani just a couple years ago for the home run crown. You still have a promising 1-2 punch. You had a promising 1-2 punch in the rotation with Cole Reagans and Brady Singer. And they added stuff to it. The arms were really the weak part of the Royals last season. The Royals struggled pitching. I believe they had the third worst ERA in the league for a starting pitching staff. So what they did is in this offseason, they went out and they got some pretty solid pitchers. They took Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, both from the Padres last year. Michael Wacha put up 14 wins, 2.4 wins above replacement. That's one of his better seasons that he's had in his career. And Seth Lugo, who was back as a starter. He's done it before. He had career high starts 26 and career-high innings. He pitched 146.1, and he also put up almost 2 WAR, 1.8. So these guys are coming off some really, really nice seasons, and joining Cole Reagans and Brady Singer at that top. Cole Reagans is a guy who has excellent strikeout stuff. He's averaging 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's elite in the league. Only, I believe, Spencer Strider has. There's a couple guys that are up there. Spencer Strider is leading the league there. I don't have his number pulled up, but I believe off the top of my head it was it was around 13, which is insane. When we talk about the Braves, we'll talk a little bit about him. He also put up 2.4 WAR last season. They've kind of done an instant turnaround on that rotation, assuming that Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha can both do what they did last year. Now, both of those guys are a little older. They're both veterans. They both haven't always had the greatest seasons, but they're both coming off really nice years, and coming to Kansas City, joining that pitching staff, that rotation. I think it can do wonders for this team. They also shored up that bullpen a lot. They went out and they got Will Smith. He had 22 saves last year. He's a veteran. And Chris Stratton. Both of those guys are giving up less than 1 home run per 9 innings. And, they're a little past their prime. They're a little older. They're both veterans. But they can give you quality innings on that back end. A bullpen that really was struggling a lot last year. Again, there's a reason they lost 106 games. And on the lineup side, like I mentioned, they locked Bobby Whitt up as a Royal for the long term, and that's huge. That was the biggest move for them, not just for this season, but for many years to come, to have that homegrown guy, that superstar you can build your lineup around. And they went out and got some solid pieces. They got Hunter Renfroe, who is a solid middle of the order bat. He can hit for power a little bit. He's gonna be a solid bat in that lineup. And Adam Frazier, who isn't gonna hit for a lot of power, but he's a really good contact hitter, and his defense there at second base is gonna be huge. So they really had one of the more underrated off seasons, I would say, in the entire MLB. They brought in a lot of quality guys, not huge names, but a lot of guys that drastically improved that team. Looking ahead to 2024, it might sound crazy. They might be able to win their division. They might be able, in that AL Central, that is not that strong this year. You have the Guardians, who, if they click, it should be their division. They have a lot of talent up there in Cleveland, but they just love being an average baseball team. That's like their favorite thing to do, the Cleveland Guardians. They do it every year. The Twins also have a lot of talent, but they are so injury prone. It's tough to rely on them. They lost a couple pitchers in the offseason as well. And their key is health. They're another team that's very good if they can stay healthy. The White Sox are in shambles right now. They're not doing anything. And the Royals are kind of sneaky good. They had a really, like I said, a really underrated offseason. And then the Tigers, of course, who actually finished second in that division last season. They aren't quite ready to compete. They also have a couple young talents, but they're not quite there yet. So you look at this, if they were in any other division, I don't think they'd have a shot at the playoffs, because I don't think they're going to be good enough to make the wild card. But if they get a little lucky, the Twins get a little hurt, and the Guardians don't decide to play good baseball, then don't be surprised if the Royals go from losing 100 games to making the playoffs. Now, I don't think they're going to be playoff contenders. I don't think they're going to make it too far. I think they're probably a first-round exit. But getting them into the playoffs after what was an awful year last season is a huge accomplishment. Again, that's their ceiling. They could, like I said, if Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo don't revert back to some of their worst seasons, and then they probably won't. But you look at that pitching staff; they brought in a lot of solid guys. That defense is just going to get better with Adam Frazier now at second, and Hunter Renfroe can flash the leather a little bit. But yeah, I'm very. It's a very nice offseason there by the Kansas City Royals. We're looking at a ceiling, like I said, division winning ceiling. First round exit most likely, but division winning nonetheless. As for their floor, they're going to be better than last season. I have no doubt in my mind about that. I think this team is absolutely on the right track. But third or fourth in their division is their floor. So there's a lot of different outcomes for this season. I'm going to my prediction, they're going to finish second. I think they'll finish third in their division, ahead of the Tigers and White Sox. I think they'll be competing with the Twins, with the Guardians or Twins for that second division spot. I don't think they're quite going to make the playoffs this year, but they have that ceiling that they could do it. I still think as long as the Twins stay healthy, it's their division. But the Royals, I think they could be one of those teams that's drastically improved from last year. They had a really, really nice offseason. Coming up in our final segment, I made a mock draft. We're going to the NFL. The NFL Combine started today. It's going on right now. I put out my first mock draft. We're going to go over that, talk about we're going to go in depth on the top 10 and then talk about some of the more interesting picks. If you have a team you want me to talk about, go ahead and leave that in the comments, and we will get to that in just a second. But if you stick around, like I said, we are moving on to NFL Mock Draft 1.0 by me. So stick around. We'll be right back.